Sports have a history of controversial official decisions, even in contests where one team doesn't even have a single shot at winning. From being denied a World Series or a Super Bowl to losing to a rival in the middle of the Cold War, numerous plays have cost the impacted teams dearly. Join us as we look at 10 of the worst referee decisions of all time. First up, at number 10, pass interference for the Saints that wasn't penalized. The New Orleans Saints couldn't believe that pass interference wasn't called on Nickel Roby-Coleman after he blocked Tommy Lee Lewis well before the football arrived. This happened in the fourth quarter of the 2018 NFL Championship game. Not only the team, but literally everyone in the stadium was shocked that the call wasn't made. The Saints were forced to settle for a field goal on fourth down when they should have had a 1st and 10 with fewer than 2 minutes left in the game. The team was also within field goal range. The Los Angeles Rams regained possession of the ball, allowing them to draw the game with their opponent. They then went on to win the game in overtime and advance to the Super Bowl. What an unfortunate turn of events, right? Well, this is just the start, so stay tuned. Next up at number 9 is the controversial tuck rule. After this play, the National Football League, NFL, nearly reached an agreement in its vote to eliminate the infamous tuck rule from the league's playbook. The Patriots were playing the LA Raiders in the AFC divisional round in 2002. With fewer than 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter and the Patriots behind 13-10, Tom Brady lost a fumble that turned out to be extremely critical. The Raiders had recovered the ball, and they were celebrating their success until the referees decided to review the play. They came to the conclusion that Brady had begun to shift his hand forward, which meant that the pass was incomplete. It was inevitable that New England would emerge victorious in overtime and go on to claim their first Super Bowl title. Following up at number 8, illegal goal by Brett Hull. One of the most controversial goals in hockey history was scored over 20 years ago when Brett Hull of the Dallas Stars defeated Dominik Hasek of the Buffalo Sabres in triple overtime in Game 6 to win the Stanley Cup. In 1999, it led to one of the worst sentences in the history of the National Hockey League. As the Dallas Stars were awarded the Stanley Cup, Brett Hull's skate was obviously inside the goalie's box when the game-winning goal was scored with 23 seconds left in the third overtime. It was also the longest game in the history of the series. Hull was most clearly present in the area before the puck arrived, despite the regulations specifying that a player could not be in the area unless the puck was already there. Moving on to number 7, Derek Jeter's home run. The home run hit by Derek Jeter in Game 1 of the American League Championship Series against the Baltimore Orioles in 1996 will go down as one of the most memorable home runs in Yankees history. The New York side was trailing 4-3 in the 8th inning until the shortstop hit a ball that would have been caught by Tony Tarasco if not for a fan named Jeffrey Mayer, or at least it would have struck the wall alone. However, Mayer got in the way of the play, and the umpire in the right field called a home run. And just like that, because of a fan in the stands, the Yankees tied the score. They eventually won the game after extra innings and went on to win the series in 5 games. That must have been some story to tell at the Christmas dinner table, right? Coming up at number 6, the hand of God, the help of God. This is the most infamous referee mistake in soccer history. The fact that it is also one of the most memorable plays in the history of professional sports is what makes this entry so worthy of this spot. In the quarterfinals of the 1986 World Cup in Mexico, Argentina defeated England thanks to a goal scored by Diego Maradona that was either a stroke of genius or, depending on how you choose to look at it, a trick. Maradona had already scored 1 goal in the game. It was scored after a beautiful run. And as for the second one, also known as the hand of God, it is one of the worst memories for any England fan. An attempted pass looped in the air after it clipped off defender Steve Hodges' boot. Peter Shilton and Maradona jumped for it, and fortunately or unfortunately, the Argentine won. If you look closely, his hand actually touched the ball. Despite England's protests, the goal was given. Since the goal was permitted to stand, subsequent generations have come to refer to it ironically as the hand of God. Next on the list is Jim Joyce and his imperfect sentence at number 5. On June 2nd, 2010, umpire Jim Joyce made a decision that went down in the records of Major League Baseball history as one of the worst calls ever made by an umpire. He took away Detroit Tigers pitcher Armando Galarraga's perfect game. Galarraga had just gotten a beauty of a single against the Cleveland Indians, and he was 1 out away from creating history. And then came the umpire's tragic error. The ground ball that Indians batter Jason Donald hit to first base was caught by Miguel Cabrera, who then threw the ball to Galarraga, who had come in to cover the pad. The pitcher and the ball arrived well before Donald, but Joyce blew the call, and just like that, one of the biggest mistakes in Major League Baseball history was made. In addition, we have the safe that won a World Series coming in at number 4. In Game 6 of the 1985 World Series, the St. Louis Cardinals were competing against the Kansas City Royals. At that point, the Cardinals held a 1-0 lead over the Royals, and they needed just 3 outs to win the championship. One thing that never came, because Don Denkinger made such a terrible decision. Jorge Orta of the Royals started the bottom of the 9th inning by hitting a slow grounder through the first baseline. Jack Clark caught the ball, and he was able to advance ahead of Royals pitcher Todd Worrell on first base. Denkinger yelled "still," even though everyone else spotted an open exit. At that point, there was no longer a chance for a rematch, and Kansas City swiftly scored 2 runs to win the game by a score of 2-1. The World Series came down to the 7th game, which the Royals won 11-0 to win the series and take home the championship. Entering the top 3, we have the robbery of Roy Jones Jr. During the 1988 Olympics in Seoul, Roy Jones Jr. not only defeated Park Si-hun of Korea, but he completely dominated him as well. The American boxer struck with 86 blows, compared to 32 for Park, who also took 2 standing counts of 8 seconds each during the bout. Nonetheless, Park won in a surprising way, which shocked everyone. After the battle, one of the judges admitted that he had awarded the victory to Si-hun so that he could calm the people in South Korea, while the other 2 judges were permanently suspended from the sport. Without a question, this is one of the worst sentences in the records of Olympic history. Not to forget, at number 2, yellow, yellow, red. Graham Pohl made one of the funniest refereeing decisions in history at the 2006 World Cup. In the last group game between Croatia and Australia, Josip Simunic was whistled for a foul and given a yellow card by referee Pohl. So far, so good. However, Simunic's second yellow card in the 89th minute caused an issue. If you're not aware, 2 yellow cards in soccer result in a red card and the player being suspended from the game. Simunic had already gotten 2 yellows, but there was no red in sight. Both the crowd and the TV viewers were perplexed. The ref reflected on his mistake, and the Croatian player was given a 3rd yellow before being given the red as the game came to a close. Lastly, at number 1, the time when the Cold War came to basketball. No result can compare to the disappointment and controversy of the 1972 Olympic gold medal game between the United States and the Soviets. With only 10 minutes remaining in the game, the Soviet Union led by 10 points. However, the Americans were able to retake the lead and led 50-49 with just a minute left on the clock. The Soviets had to hustle the ball across the court since an International Amateur Basketball Federation (FIBA) rule at the time forbade calling out a timeout following a second free throw. As a Soviet player dribbled the ball near half court, it appeared as though the Americans would win the game. However, the Soviet coaches protested that a timeout they requested between Collins's free throws hadn't been given, and as they caused a disturbance at the scorer's table, a referee interrupted play with a second to spare. So the Soviets inbounded the ball again from under their own basket but failed to score as time expired. Even though it appeared that the U.S. had won, the clock actually showed 50 seconds rather than 3 seconds when the game started, so the Soviets were granted one more chance. Sure enough, the Soviets scored and took home the gold. The U.S. still hasn't been able to digest this defeat. Which one of these referee decisions do you think was the worst? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe.